In August 1989, a brutal double homicide occurred inside one of the most exclusive mansions in Beverly Hills. The victims were Jose Menendez, a high-ranking Hollywood executive, and his wife, Kitty. They had spent years building a massive financial empire. Their sons, Lyle and Erik, became the face of the tragedy, claiming they were at a movie theater and a food festival when the murders took place. Because of the violence of the scene, the police initially believed the killings were a professional mafia hit, which allowed the brothers to avoid suspicion for months. Investigators were so convinced by the brothers' status as wealthy survivors that they didn't even perform basic forensic tests for gunshot residue on their hands. The investigation was stalled by a specific assumption that in a neighborhood this wealthy, the monsters always come from the outside. In the immediate aftermath, the brothers didn't retreat into quiet mourning. Instead, they began spending their parents' fortune as if they had just won the lottery. Within a few months, they spent roughly $700,000 on luxury goods, high-end real estate, and brand-new cars. This sudden financial windfall became the anchor of the prosecution's case. They argued the brothers were simply impatient for their $14 million inheritance. The break in the case didn't come from a bank statement, though. It came from a confession Erik made to his psychologist, which was secretly recorded on a cassette tape. Combined with the massive spending, that tape convinced the public that Lyle and Erik were cold-blooded killers, driven purely by a desire for money. By 1993, the trial had turned into a massive media spectacle, becoming the first major case to be broadcast live into American living rooms. On the stand, the brothers shared a different story. They testified that they didn't kill for an inheritance, but out of terror following years of physical and psychological abuse from their father. At the time, the public largely dismissed these claims, choosing to believe the simpler, more sensational story that the brothers were just greedy. In 1993, the national conversation about abuse rarely included male victims, and almost never wealthy ones. Many found it impossible to believe that a father could provide his sons with luxury cars while simultaneously terrorizing them. The brothers were eventually sentenced to life without parole. Given the cultural climate of the 90s, the case seemed closed forever. 3 decades later, a new generation began re-examining the original trial footage through the reach of social media. With a modern understanding of mental health, today's viewers started to recognize the signs of trauma that a 1990s jury had labeled as acting. This wasn't just an online trend. The digital scrutiny forced the legal system to take a second look at a case it had ignored for 30 years. This new attention gave other people the courage to speak. New witnesses have since come forward to provide testimony that supports the brothers' original abuse claims. This evidence challenges the very foundation of the first trial, suggesting the murders weren't a hit job, but a reaction to a life of hidden violence. Currently, the Los Angeles District Attorney is actively reviewing this new testimony to decide if the brothers' convictions should be overturned. If the court finds these new claims are credible, Lyle and Erik Menendez could be set free after 34 years in prison. The case forces a difficult question. Should a final verdict stand when the psychological context of the crime is completely reevaluated? Can the law correct itself when our understanding of trauma evolves, or are these decades-old decisions permanent? Are the brothers killers who manipulated the narrative, or victims failed by the system? Share your verdict below.